What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Locked On Pirates podcast. I am, of course, your host, who does the most, Ethan Smith. Hope you guys are all having a phenomenal Tuesday, September 6th, and Gary Morgan is joining us again today. Scheduling has been an issue lately, but he's back. We're going to talk about the Mets series that got postponed yesterday that I lightly previewed on yesterday's episode, but we're going to get a little bit more into it today and what we're expecting and what we would like to see from this team, not only in this series, but for the remainder of the month. We're also going to talk about our NL playoff predictions. I mean, it appears that the National League is going to stay pretty chalk. It appears that those teams are already pretty much set. So we're going to make some predictions there as the Pirates are going to be playing a lot of teams down the stretch that are probably going to be in the playoffs. So food for thought, right? That's what we're here to talk about today on the Locked On Pirates podcast. I am, of course, your host who does the most, Ethan Smith. You can follow me on Twitter at MVP underscore Ethan or at Locked On Pirates. And with that said, let's get into today's episode.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to that Pirates podcast, everybody. It is September 6th already. Somehow, I don't know. Things are flying by. College football has already finished its first weekend. Obviously, the backyard brawl was a big deal. We got NFL football in 2 days. There's a lot going on in the world of sports, but the Pittsburgh Pirates are closing down their season here in this final month of September, which I believe now bleeds over into October pretty heavily because of the pushback season. But Gary Morgan is back, of course, doing his wonderful stuff with the Pirates Fan Forum and Bucks in the Basement. Gary, how you been?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing
Feels
wonderful.
like a Monday.
It does feel like a Monday, honestly. I feel like every weekday to me now feels like a Monday, especially with how this Pirates team plays. Is it because I mean you could pick any day in the last like 5 or 6 days with this team, and it just feels like the same day. I mean the Blue Jays series I mentioned yesterday that the Pirates gave up 4 runs in all 3 games and only scored 4 runs in the entire series. I said, okay, cool. So it was basically the same game over and over and over again. They welcome a Mets team, which not too often do you start playing a team in September that you have not played at all the entire year. So we have not seen these teams play whatsoever. It's pretty clear that the Mets are obviously a better team. I think we can agree on that because literally you could flip the records of these teams, and that's the records of these teams. But when I was looking at this series, especially the pitching matchups, I was very interested in the fact that we're going to get to see Johan Oviedo and Mitch Keller in this series against a strong Mets lineup. And that's more of what I've been looking at down the stretch as I look at the Roansy starts, where his last 3 starts he's done phenomenal against the Phillies, the Blue Jays, and the Braves lineups. I really enjoy seeing that stuff. I'm looking for that same thing from a guy like Mitch Keller. I want to see him continue to progress in a season that has arguably been his best season. And Johan Oviedo makes his debut Sunday. I believe he'll pitch tomorrow. I like to see what we got from Jose Quintana. So what other things are you looking for, not only in this Mets series, but also down the stretch?
I mean, guys that are going to be here next year to play like guys we want to see next year.
Yeah.
Because reality is, most of this team is returning next year. And, you can get upset about that, or you can realize they're all kids, and that's why. And you need to see them play well. So it means a lot less when I see Kevin Newman get a single in a big moment, or Ben Gamble get a single in a big moment. It means a lot more if I see Tucupita Marcano or O'Neal Cruz do it. And just like you said with the pitchers, Mitch Keller's coming back next year. JT Brubaker's coming back. Oviedo's going to be in the mix somehow. Rowanzi's going to be part of it. So yeah, when they start, you want to take notice and see how they do. That's the kind of stuff that we can pay attention to. Internally, I I think they should be pressuring themselves to try to finish strong. Because of that fact that almost everybody's returning.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people think about the bleed over from 2022 to 2023 for these non-playoff teams. Is it is a big deal for these organizations to finish a season strong. I mean, if the Pirates can go out and they're at the 49 win mark right now, so not not obviously not great, but I think if you get to the 60 win mark, that's not that bad to the end of a season if I'm doing my math correctly. Because they have about, it's what, September 6th, and the season goes until October 5th, and they have a couple. I'm not going to try to do that math. But if they get to the 60, 62 win mark, I think that's a win for this ball team, or for this ball club. Because
They have
it's still,
29 games left, and if they can manage to win 14 of them, they avoid 100 losses. Now, that's an awful lot to ask. It's close to a 500 record. They certainly haven't played that kind of ball all year. But if Derek Shelton's the right guy to coach this team, this is largely the team he's going to be coaching next year too. With additions, there will be additions. But this is largely the team he's going to be coaching next year. Show me what you got. Challenge yourself.
yeah.
Go for a good record. Tell these guys it matters. Show them it matters.
And looking at the schedule for the remainder of the year, it may sound like a lot. Like Gary's saying, 14 wins may sound like a lot because it is for this team. I mean, I don't think we should expect it to happen, but it would be very nice if it does. You have this series against the Mets, then you welcome the Cardinals, a home series, which the Cardinals have been a thorn in the Pirates' side for as long as I can remember. But then you have a series against the Reds where you face them 4 times. That's a series that obviously you're about on the same level and track level with that team. Then you travel to New York for 6 games against the Mets and the Yankees, but then you have the Cubs and the Reds again for 7 straight games. Realistically, if they just handle business against Chicago and Cincinnati, your 14 wins doesn't sound too out of the ordinary if they can just, squeak some out there in the holes when they play St. Louis and New York.
I mean, some of their best moments this entire season have been against the best teams.
Yep, that is the funny part.
It's been against the Dodgers and it's been against the Yankees, and I don't think that we need to look forward to playing the Reds to think that there's wins there. They have some good players and they have some good talent. Show me what you got. Step up. Show me you deserve to be here next year. As opposed to assuming it. I mean, somebody like Tucupita Marcano shouldn't feel safe. I mean, he's got Diego Castillo that could easily replace him. Nick Gonzalez could come up and replace him in June. It's not like any of these guys should feel like their position is locked. So, this last month of the season should matter to everybody in that room. And if it doesn't, and if that message hasn't been put forward, well, that's on the team. It's time to put up or shut up now. You made it to the show, and now it's time to play like it.
Yeah, and I always go back to it. You brought up the Yankees and the Dodgers series. I always go back to that one moment in time during this Pirates season that me and you absolutely loved covering on Mondays when this team swept the Dodgers, beat the Yankees in a series. They were 24-29 at one point, if people remember that. But since then, they have 25 wins since that moment. And that was in June. That is insane to me. And it's crazy because there was so much promise in the organization during that time. I mean, you had Rodolfo Castro playing well. You had Jack Sawinski hitting bombs. I mean, everything was going right. And then
they shot themselves in the foot and sent down their very best pitcher.
Yep.
And, they sent down 2 kids that had hit collectively 24 home runs. And, they took their own momentum away from themselves. And I'm not saying they would have held that line and continued to play like that, but when sometimes kids play a little bit better than they have any business playing. And that's what was happening. And you falsely stopped that. That's all.
Yeah, and look who's rode that wave all year, the Baltimore Orioles. And I thought it was hilarious, by the way, that I forget who, somebody in the organization said it, and I forget who it was, or it might have just been some random one-off thing that I misinterpreted. But I saw somebody mention the Baltimore Orioles as a example of what the Pirates could be in 2023. And I said, what have the Pirates shown me to tell me that they could do that in 2023 right now?
What did the Orioles show you in 2022 to think that they could do it this year?
Yeah.
You honest to God have to give a little bit of room for young players to get better over an off season. It's the period of time where all baseball players do their biggest improvements, their biggest jumps, or over the off season. You're going to come into that with all these kids doing that. So, yes, you should expect this same group of youngsters to come up here next year and play better. You should. You absolutely should. And if they don't do something similar to what Baltimore is doing, and let's make no mistake, they're 7 games over 500. It's not like they're world beaters. They're 4.5 games out of the wild card race. It's not like they're locked to make the playoffs, even in the expanded format. Is it a good season for the Baltimore Orioles in that division? Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But let's not get this mischaracterized either. They're probably not making the playoffs.
No.
And they probably won't hold this together all that long. That's kind of what these teams do.
Yeah, and I think if the Pirates do improve next year, which they will, I firmly believe they will, I think it could be a lot like the the last excuse me, the last winning season that they had in 2018 or 19? The
18.
Chris Archer trade, yeah. I feel like it could be a lot like that, where they're not, like you said, they're not going to be world beaters. They're not going to, make a wild card spot or anything. But I definitely could see the Pirates in the realm of 82 and 80, 80 and 82, 84 and 79. I could see them in that realm next year, with the fact that before we talk about it, there's going to be a lot more guys coming up next year. A lot more. Again, it's going to be fun. And they're going to be hopefully complementary pieces to a winning product. And if you need complementary pieces to your winning product in the workplace, Gary, I know you like that tie-in. As you gear up for fall, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and the purple #hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know that every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonmlb. Terms and conditions apply. So again, excuse me. That's been an interesting thing today. You talked about bringing back this entire group, which I agree with. I think the majority of this group will be back. Obviously, there's no reason for them not to be. Who are going to be, you think, the complementary pieces to this team next year? A lot like how we saw a lot of rookies get called up this year. Who do you think are the complementary pieces going into next year that could help. Not only like near the beginning of the season, but at any point. Like, who do we really expect is going to come up?
Some of them are going to be guys that were called up this year, and they're going to not make it out of spring, and they're going to come up as a reinforcement earlier. Then you're looking at the next wave. You're Mike Burrows, you're Cody Bolton, Joe Jocks, Nick Mears, Quinn Priester. You know, those types of players are going
It
to
is
get a
Joe
shot.
Jocks, by the way. It's Joe Jocks.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I've never talked about him on this podcast because I was 100% convinced that his last name was pronounced Jaquez when I
I think
first
it's
saw it.
Jocks. Pretty sure it is. I think they have a decent little pool of players that are going to come up next year. Nick Gonzalez is probably going to play in. Leo Verbrugero. We'll see. We'll see who else there is. Kanan Smith and Jigba is going to definitely get a longer look next year. Travis Swaggerty at some point. Jiwan Bay. So it's not as though they're bereft of players that could make an impact, but I always like to point to somebody like Rodolfo Castro as a good example. You know, he got his first real taste of like being paid attention to in 2020 at the training circle. And then 2021 he got a shot, and you know, he had a little bit of an explosion onto the scene, hitting all those home runs, specifically against the Mets. So let's kind of hope he has some fun
Yeah.
in this series again. But after that, you know, got sent down because he was underperforming. Back up, he's probably one of their better looking youngsters right now. So that's kind of what you look for in this at this stage. You know, these kids will go back and forth, and some will stick and some won't. Some will bomb out and never make it. Some will finally lock in.
Yeah, and that's where I get to a point where I see everybody in my comments lately, by the way, so I'm going to mention it, is everybody in the comments is at this point saying Derek Shelton needs to pick a lineup and stick with it. Like the constant changing of the lineups. I do get that the lineup is not going to be the exact same every single day. But when you had Rodolfo Castro, I forget what series it was recently. I believe it was it against Milwaukee, or was it the series before that, where he actually was like playing really well. And then the next day, he was like the next 2 days he didn't play. And he wasn't hurt. And everybody was just kind of like up in arms about what was going on there. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you guys. I really don't.
I do for like the 9 billionth time. They script out these lineups weeks in advance. They had no idea how he played that night before he was scheduled to be sat the next day. It has nothing to do with their performance whatsoever. I think that's wrong, but I'm explaining it. That's the answer. That's why they do it. That's how they do it. And everybody in that dugout is involved in it. Even Don Kelly, who some of you for some reason think would be a better manager than Derek Shelton, does the same thing.
See, that one got to me a couple days ago because I actually saw a whole thread about that they needed to fire everybody on the staff except Don Kelly, and I was like, why him specifically? Like,
He's a hometown guy, and they think they know. Yeah. Same reason that people want Neil Walker to be the assistant GM, because it's a name they know, and for some reason they think he would just magically understand how to do every aspect of that job he's never done before.
Yeah, screw it. Let's bring Ben Roethlisberger in. Put him in the front office. Put him in the front. Well, let's just put all the recently retired Pittsburgh sports athletes in the front office of the Pittsburgh Pirates and see what happens. Ben Roethlisberger.
He might be better than Anthony Bonda.
Who, Ben Roethlisberger?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I didn't mean as a player. I meant in the front office, but he could be a pitcher. You never know. But speaking on a lot of different things, though, I mean, this Pirates team, that's the great thing that's always wonderful about this team is a lot of people look at the Pirates, and it was actually really funny yesterday in my rant. I didn't realize I said it until after I edited the podcast because I was like that upset about all that stuff that happened this weekend with all those comments. I said, the Pirates used to be a franchise of storied history and are now a punchline. And that got people pretty riled up. And when I said that, I don't mean any disrespect to this organization at all. But at some point, and I've said this a couple times the last couple weeks, and I think you agree, you said it's put up or shut up time. At some point, you got to show me something. I mean, I've invested fully into this team now since 2020 when I started this podcast. This is like a full investment. I've invested time, I've invested research, I've invested all this stuff. And so have you. And so have a lot of other Pirates fans. So at some point, there has to be a give off. At some point, you have to say, okay, your investment that you've made in our team and our product is going to get better. But when does it happen is really the question. That's kind of what my rant was about yesterday. Because, I mean, you could go look at this Hall of Fame class that you saw and see the history that this team has. But do they ever get back to it is the question.
I mean, the system is never going to allow them to get back to the
No.
point where you have players staying here for 10, 15 years. It just isn't a reality.
No.
They can get one player maybe, to live most of their career out here. But, make no mistake, Ke'Bryan Hayes, if he finishes that contract here, isn't going to sign a second one.
No.
I mean, it is what it is. And you have to understand that's part of baseball. There just aren't, like, Mike Trout probably won't finish his career as an Angel. Like, that's just the way that baseball is now. Like, Cabrera is a rare bird in Detroit, and trust me, they wish that he would retire.
They really do.
It is what it is. The Pirates' best thing they could do to get better would just be to invest in the pitching staff next year, because I don't think they have enough internally.
No, they don't.
So go and get some, make it a little better. Let these kids have something to build around, and I think you'll see improvement next year.
Now, when you're talking about making investments in the pitching staff, this is another thing I've talked about on here the last couple weeks. Are we talking Jose Quintana and Tyler Anderson again, where these guys are just traded by June? Or are you talking about like an investment in a guy for like 2 or 3 years that is going to be a part of the pitching staff for a while?
I mean, if you're asking my opinion, I'd try to sign guys for 3 or 4 years. Just to keep them around. I'd probably extend Keller and Rowanzi and maybe even Brubaker next year. But that's not me. I don't get to make that decision.
Yeah.
But I'd want to lock in my staff as much as I can and pieces and parts. But if they do 1-year contracts, you could do worse than Tyler Anderson and Jose Quintana.
You
They
definitely
did
could.
pretty well here. I just think it's time to. You're good at identifying them clearly. Pick 2 of them, sign them, make one of them a couple years, maybe trade the other one. It's not like you can't trade the guy that you signed for 2 years anyway if you really get something great, but do it. Lock something in, because there's just nothing coming. Mike Burrows and Quinn Priester are the 2 big horses leading the race. You got some other guys coming up, fairly methodically. But those are the 2 big ones that you're looking for. And if you're waiting for them to be the savior, I got to be honest, you're not going to pull this off. Because there will be arm troubles with somebody.
Well, and also you're not going to really be able to pull off a rotation of Contreras, Keller, Priester, and Burrows forever. I mean, it sounds nice if that all pans out, but that's also with the assumption that Mike Burrows and Quinn Priester pan out. I mean,
I think a lot of people forget that Jameson Taillon and Garrett Cole barely pitched together. And they were supposed to be the 2 top of the mountain pitchers for the Pirates. Not A.J. Burnett, not Francisco Liriano. It was supposed to be Garrett Cole and Jameson Taillon. It never timed up. And that happens. So go get some people from outside that you trust. Let them play. And, hey, if they get outplayed by Mike Burrows, great.
I was going to say that's a win-win scenario. say you bring in just a random name that I threw out there on this podcast a month ago, Zach Plesac in Cleveland. Say you throw him out there and you get him, right? And Mike Burrows comes up and starts out playing him. that makes Zach Plesac your fourth starter. I think you'd be pretty okay with that for the most part as the Pittsburgh Pirates. Honestly, now I'm not saying that's who they're going to go get. I just throw their name out there because I know Cleveland is going to sell those pitchers off. They have to. They have so many of them. They're going to probably end up trading 2 of them this offseason from what I've heard from Locked On Guardians. But with all that said, as I mentioned, the Pirates play the Mets, the Yankees, the Cardinals, some playoff teams down the stretch. The National League is pretty much set up. I mean, the Dodgers right now are the clear, uncut best team in baseball. I don't think anybody can disagree there. So what do you think is going to happen in the playoffs where it appears we're going to see the Mets, the Braves, the Phillies, the Cardinals, the Dodgers, and the Padres?
I mean, I'm not 100% sold on the Phillies or the Padres, but the only ones that are really chasing them are the Brewers, and I don't believe in them either. So they're all kind of fodder to me. To me, it's the Braves. I think the Braves are the best team in the league, not LA. I think they're, to me, the most stacked and regular team. Everything's there. They don't have to pull special tricks. They're not fighting for playing time for certain people. They have stars coming back, Ghazi Albies. So I think that Atlanta is probably the team I think everybody should be worried about. In fact, if I'm the Mets, I'm not all that convinced I'm winning the division.
Oh, no, you only have a 1-game lead now.
As far as the playoffs, though, well, the Mets got to do it in the playoffs. And for some reason, they just never do. And there seems to be another little trend here with Max Scherzer where he's getting tired again. And I don't know. I'm seeing him getting pulled out of games a little bit early here and there. Maybe they're trying to preserve his arm. Either way, the playoffs are a long run for an older pitcher like that. And they're going to rely on him. So the Mets go as far as Scherzer can take them, I think. And I'm not sure he can take them that far. I'd put all my money on the Braves if I bet, to be honest. I think they're the best team in the National League, top to bottom.
Yeah, and honestly, if as a Pirates fan, if the Pirates could build their team any way, like if you could tell me to choose a way that my team could be built, it would be the Atlanta model. The Atlanta Braves have done it the way I think any fan base would want their team to be built. They built mostly internally. They lose Freddie Freeman and get a replacement in Matt Olson, but you look all up and down that roster, most of that roster is internally built. You're looking at Vaughn Grisham. You're looking at Michael Harris. You're looking at Ozzie Albies. All these guys that are now signed for, as you mentioned, 6 to 7 years minimum on pretty cheap deals. Which I think that's another thing that alludes to the fact that the Braves have that option because they have the talent surrounded by it. Now, for me, I am kind of on the steady Mets-Braves thing, but I agree with you as well. If Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer can't carry that Mets team, they're screwed. And that's scary because it can happen at the snap of a finger. It really could. It could happen in the middle of their first series. They could be up 2-1 in the middle of their first series against whoever they're playing, and Max Scherzer could blow his arm out, and that's it.
Or he could try to push through and, just underperform. And that's kind of what happened last year to him. So I don't personally believe that the Mets have enough. I don't like the makeup of their team. And I'm saying this knowing full-headed they're going to kick the crap out of the Pirates.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, against the Braves, I don't think they'll stand a chance. I really don't. I think LA would beat the tar out of them, too.
Probably. Especially because didn't Dustin May just come back, too?
Yep.
Oh, God. All right. Well, enough of talking about teams with more talent on their roster than the Pittsburgh Pirates. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in today to the Locked On Pirates podcast. Gary is back. Sure, he'll be back on Mondays moving forward. NFL Sunday is back, so make sure you go check out Christopher Carter over at Locked On Steelers, Hunter Hodes over at Locked On Penguins, and Nick Farba of Locked On Pitt after that wonderful backyard brawl game. And it doesn't get any easier for Pitt this week as they play Tennessee. But Gary, what do you have going on over there at Bucks in the Basement and Pirates Fan Forum this week?
Pirates Fan Forum, we got a very special guest. The Pirate Queen Banshee is going to be on with us this week. It's going to be fun. We're going to be talking about really kind of looking forward to next season, I think, a little bit. It's time to start doing that. This season, we'll see how the rest of it plays out, but even things that happen that are good are really about next year. So,
yep, I agree. Yeah. But thank you guys so much. As you already know, follow me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates. Make sure you follow Gary at GaryMo2007. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in today. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. I almost said Wednesday. And I will see you guys tomorrow on Wednesday.